Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to up-level every part of your life. I'm Matt Arruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick and mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I am passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you were meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Inspire and Move podcast. I am your host, Matt Arruda, and surprise, I am joined by Matt Arruda.
Hi, everybody. This is very cool.
And you guys, we're doing something new for the first time ever. We are in a podcast studio facing each other with super fancy mics. Normally, we get scrappy with it at home and we share a mic. We, pass it off back and forth. Our amazing team edits it accordingly, with my voice being really loud and Matt's voice being at a different volume, and just smushing the two together.
Which means nowhere near as loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was trying to say that so lovingly, eloquently. But today we are coming to you, well, sort of live, from Den 1880 in Waterloo. We are having such an amazing strategy day with our team from the Social Snippet. And part of that day is being able to gaze into each other's eyes and record this podcast together.
Not awkward.
So, love.
Talk to me, Goose.
Tell the people what we're talking about today.
Today we are going to shed some light. We're going to let people in a little bit on what it's like to have a successful partnership that bleeds over from not just what we do in our own home, but then how that relates to how we run our business.
Yeah. And we just kind of put a nice little list together. And this is something for some of you that are maybe new to Inspire and Move as a personal brand, as a podcast. Matt and I own a business together. We own a physical gym, Benchmark Fitness, in downtown Burlington, Ontario, among other things in our portfolio. But owning this business together is really it's our baby, our bread and butter, and that's kind of the root of what we want to chat with today and have some nice examples. So point number one, and we'll share a few points with you, but point number one is that we share the same sleep schedule, which might sound super weird that we're starting that off with that as point number one, but it actually has so much significance in our relationship, in our partnership. And this has gone back to before we bought our gym 5+ years ago, where we each worked in corporate, but I was also dabbling in the fitness industry, and I would teach F45 classes. I would teach group fitness classes at 5:30 and 6:30 a.m. So I was getting up much earlier to take action on those classes before coming home and showering and putting on a pencil skirt and a blouse and makeup and commuting together to our place of work, where we work for the same company, but very different businesses within that company. So we maintain the same sleep schedule then, but even now, being in our own business and what we do together, and we get up at the same time every morning between, either 5 or 6 a.m., depending on what the day looks like, and we go to bed at the same time. And one of the things that I think is so beautiful about this is that, there's no animosity of, okay, I'm a personal trainer at our gym, so I'm going to wake up at 5 to train a client at 6, but you are in control of your schedule for the day, so you can sleep till 9:30. That there is absolutely none of that.
Sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing for somebody out there that resonates with that. But that is not our season right now. And, we get so much energy from being in our space early in the morning, and the people that we get to see every day that are going to go crush it in their day. And this is a conversation for another time of how proud we are of our community at Benchmark, and what everybody does is so unique. But there is some magic to having that early morning rise, and also that feeling of accomplishment of what you do in a day.
Well, I think it also, too, what we're hitting on is that idea of early to bed, early to rise, and having that be part and parcel of what we've implemented for years and years, is just the idea of consistency, right? Just the idea of whatever it is that you're doing. In this case, the example that is very true for how it is that we're able to execute, how we can execute. The example now is our sleeping patterns, sure. But I would say that what we both do and have done, implemented for years and do it well, is boring consistency and the idea of knowing what's coming and how it typically gets done so that with that consistency comes efficiency. And with that means that we're not guessing not just what the other one is doing, but we more often than not know what the outcome is of what it is that we're doing so that those kinds of things don't have to fill our plate and we can now use other parts of that plate to expand, to grow, to try new things and have that be part and parcel of what the new routine ultimately ends up being. Because in the last few years, especially, we're doing things that we've never done before, but that's because we had the time and the space to implement it because everything leading up to it was just boring consistency.
And consistency is so key in so many different things.
Yeah.
Number 2, over to you.
Number 2, and anybody who knows us, I think, would realize this relatively quickly. We have very different strengths and weaknesses, for that matter, and they're complementary to one another.
Do you care to give some examples?
Well, look, we both love a good time. However, if there's somebody who's going to carry the energy flag and the social flag for all of us, it's you. And I'm the one who's going to make sure that we're staying on time. Punctuality is my superpower. And I don't understand how people aren't punctual. You've literally had all day to be punctual, so why are you late? Anyways, that's a whole other discussion. You're getting a real close glimpse at how Matt works. So with that said, I think we've got a lot of strengths and weaknesses that complement one another, ultimately, business and personally. But I think that's part and parcel of why or how success stems from that naturally, too. I think once we've recognized some of my strengths that are not your strengths, that I know that that's what I'm going to be leaning into, and vice versa. There are strengths of yours, i.e. anything tech related, that I know if I did not have you in my life for like the smallest of things, like what the hell is our Netflix password? I can't even say the word Netflix, let alone know how it works. If I didn't have these kinds of things, I would probably just be nonstop looking at YouTube on my phone because forget it, the television doesn't work. It hasn't worked for the last 12 years. So without you, then those are the things that I know I can't get along with well or easily. And then there's other parts of our days that go on where we know, and this is through a little bit of trial and error and such, obviously, as is the case with any relationship, but professionally speaking, there are things that we know just naturally fall into my bucket versus falling into your bucket. We kind of joke about it, but it's not really a joke. You are the chief fun officer, while I am the chief financial officer. And do you know which one is way more boring? But also extremely necessary, as is yours, for that matter. I think part of the magic that exists at Benchmark, and really, quite frankly, in our lives outside of those four walls there, is the ability to incorporate new relationships and growth and the people that we've met over the course of the last few years and how easily engaging you are with all of them. Not to say that, I'm a troll that lives under a bridge and hate human beings and only want to see dogs. Part of that's true. But all of that is not necessarily to say that, I also don't love to be a part of all of that, of course. But we know that is your strength. And that's part of what brings the magic and keeps the magic wherever we are. It's you. And all that means that I get to lean into that strength. And then when it comes time for other important parts that I know I'm the flag bearer of that needs to be leaned into, then that's where I've got your back on that. And that back and forth ultimately is part of how the success is a little bit easier to achieve.
Absolutely. And I think even for context, and those of you listening or watching on YouTube that know me, know us well, know that if I was responsible for making dinner 5 nights in a row, we would be having popcorn every night.
Nope, not an option.
Yeah, so that's just a perfect example of how Matt is the chief kitchen officer in our house. And we've actually found a really beautiful balance within that, and just kind of as an extension of this point, that Matt is a spectacular cook. He's creative, he's passionate, and he makes really beautiful meals. He cleans up as he goes, and he plates it beautifully as well. So just to give you a
Holy crap, how lucky are you?
I'm so lucky. How lucky am I? I think about it often. And in that time when Matt is preparing dinner, I have found a great strength of my own and sort of having a power hour, like a 30 to 90 minute, depending on the meal, workflow that I could kind of come home and take the dogs for a walk, have a shower, depending on what my day looks like in the schedule, and know that maybe between 5:30 and 7 p.m., I have a nice flow of work time, and I'll light a candle, I'll have a kombucha and just get some work done. And in that time, Matt is doing something that he's really talented at, really gifted at, and enjoys. And I can move along my business, our business, whether it's recording a solo episode for the podcast or enrolling some new gym members, because Matt wouldn't be as familiar with the software system that we use for that. And so it is a really beautiful balance, or even better suited harmony in terms of our relationship professionally and personally, and even in just this example, how the two coexist together.
Yeah, I think ultimately, neither one of us are too good for anything. If it needs to be done, it just gets done. And regardless of, whatever title you might want to put on it, or how long you've been doing it, or however you see yourself within any part of this relationship, whether it be you and I as husband and wife, or as business partners in the gym space, or anything else that extends from there, I think our work ethic lends itself to understand that if it needs to be done, it just gets done. And some things are easier to be done by you versus it is me, but it doesn't mean that we are waiting for it to be done by the other person. If it needs to happen, it just happens for the sake of efficiency and for the sake of obviously moving it along.
I think that's a great transition into point number 3 about how communication is key.
Yeah, it's probably, we've got a few points to make on this, but communication being key is probably by far the most important part of any success in any business. Whether, you're married to your business partner, you're best friends with your business partner, they are in a completely different country than you. I think maybe more so than anything, communication there is by far the most important part of any of that.
And that's a big takeaway for all of us. Just communication is key, period. We've, had some situations in our business this week where we're like, okay, yeah, nope, this is a good reminder that communication is key. Communicating with clients of what their one-on-one training schedule is with their trainer. If they've chosen to take 2 weeks off and they just assume that their spot is waiting for them, but our trainers, they are paid per the hours that they work. So they shouldn't have to just sit around and wait for this person to come back. And this is just a great example of communication is key.
Over-communicate.
And over-communicate. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Right. I mean, you can't almost recognize that saying it once or even twice is enough. People have so much going on in their lives. People have never been busier with all the potential distractions that are coming to them and all the rest. You can't assume that you saying it once or even twice sometimes is enough to have it locked in. I'll give you an example. Part of what I do outside of our benchmark world is I'm in sales for Porsche. And we had a guy who made a $200,000 mistake simply because he didn't confirm what his client thought was well communicated. It was they had gone on a test drive and had communicated how cool this certain sound system was in the vehicle. And long story short, they left the dealership thinking that idea of discussing how cool that sound system was enough for my colleague, their sales rep, to include it in their $200,000 purchase moving forward.
Oof.
Yeah. And so that wasn't confirmed. It was just kind of generally understood, I guess, from one party to the other. And because it was never communicated more than once or twice for that matter, that car arrived 6 months later, 7 months later, and did not have that sound system, which they could not wait to make sure was part and parcel of the delivery experience. And all that is to say, they had to order another one because the clients, who understandably are spending $200,000 on a very highly customized vehicle, didn't get maybe what was going to be one of the most important parts of the entire process. And so now that $200,000 car sits idle on the dealership floor waiting for somebody else to come pick it up and hopefully good enough for them to kind of take it off their hands. But until then, you have a $200K car, almost a $250,000 mistake that sits there that somebody's got to swallow because communication wasn't clear enough from the get-go.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so those kinds of things, obviously that becomes a little bit more of a highlighted example, but it could be the smallest of things just as a means of not knowing when the other person is going to be home and what you're planning for accordingly to have that communicated in enough time so that the rest of the evening, the rest of whatever the plans are executed properly.
Well, many of you know that we have 3 dogs.
Yep.
And we have 3 dogs that love breakfast and dinner. So they can't tell us if they've had dinner or not. So we will communicate with one another that, okay, I'm heading out to this appointment. I've already fed the dogs. because the dogs would be very happy to eat dinner twice. They have no way of telling you. So just something as simple as that, as just communicating. Or, if it is, I've left this on the counter to defrost for dinner, whatever it may be, small things that can just allow for greater efficiency in your partnership at home. And again, if you are in business with one another.
Absolutely. So many things that are moving on, especially if you are in business with one another. You don't wear one hat. In fact, you're probably wearing a dozen hats at the same time all the time. So with that in mind, if you're not communicating exactly what it is that you're talking about and doing it often, it's too easy for that to fly by, not be thought of for hours again, because you've got the other 11 hats that you're having to juggle. And before you know it, it's past, it's too late, mistakes are made, feelings are hurt, toes are stepped on, all the rest, and it's completely avoidable by just making sure it's over communicated.
Well, and if you are someone who's, a high performer, or you're an entrepreneur, you no doubt have a lot of things on your mind a lot of the time. And I'm sure Matt can attest to this, as I'm gazing into his eyes here right now, that I talk about a lot of things all the time. Like, I am constant swirling thoughts that I am just sort of sharing audibly and what is on my mind. And I could be talking about something Porsche related for Matt. I could be talking about something benchmark related, inspire and move, dinner plans with our family, and the dogs that need a vet appointment. Could all be in the same thought within a period of 3 minutes. And I would most likely have to then kind of peel back the layers and over communicate what I am referring to support each thought.
Yeah, and that's just normal understanding, right? I mean, this is common communication, common socialization of sorts, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's just reminding you, listening to this, that it never hurts to say the same thing more than once or twice, especially as it pertains to personal relationship and certainly in business. Making sure everyone's on the same page is paramount, right?
Absolutely.
Number 4, why and how we're able to maintain a successful relationship through our entire business, even though we're married, is because we have very similar values, and that extends across a lot of different mediums. I know values in and of itself is a bit of a blanket statement, right? There's a lot of things you can speak to there. But I think for us, we share a lot of principles, a lot of core principles that are important to us based on not just how we were raised, but what we want out of our business, what our goals are for our business. Again, that kind of ties in as well to the over communication part, so that we are moving in the same direction at the same speed for the same reason. But values being aligned from the get-go is a massive part of how we're able to keep things moving smoothly, I think, between you and I too.
Absolutely. And, one of the things, even just to give everyone some context for today, we started our day nice and early. We woke up at the same time, had an espresso together in the morning, and went to the gym at the same time for my client, but knowing that we have a full day that we're going to be dressed and ready for, but knew that we would feel better and we would perform better here on this podcast for the creative thinking and brainstorming in our strategy meeting, that we would feel better by generating energy through a workout. Now, we didn't have the time available to do our normal Friday 9 a.m. 1-hour training session with one of our amazing trainers. So we adjusted our schedule accordingly, but knew that we were going to fit in a block of 30 minutes of cardio. We're going to boost our endorphins. We're going to get sweaty. 30 minutes of cardio is efficient, and get a coffee together after, go home, and carry on with the rest of our day. Mm-hmm. And that is an important pillar for us for a lot of reasons. That's going to make us feel better physically, mentally, emotionally, but that we also are on the same page of stacking our day to allow for that, because we value it so much as individuals, but also that time together.
Yeah, that quality time together, right? I mean, that's a part of yours and my love language. Mm-hmm. And that's whether it be in business or at home. I think no matter how busy our day is at work, you made reference off the top, we're typically in the gym by 5:45 in the morning. And it's very common to not really come back up for air for 12 hours, right? You're almost 6 o'clock and change before we're both back home. I go do my thing at some points. You're in and out of the gym and other things that you're doing with Inspire and Move, with events and meetings and all the rest. It's completely normal to circle back with one another 12 hours later, but it's imperative that we do. Not just obviously checking on how one's business moves have gone through the course of the day, but just how you feeling, how you doing, mm-hmm. What are some wins that we have had today? What are some challenges that you're working through? And that's important too, because with us having similar values, we also have different strengths within the emotions within there, right? I am much more what would the word be versus you? Let's say Allie's more emotional than I am.
This is true.
I might come at things with a little bit more of a
Logical,
pragmatic, clearer sense of focus. I'm quicker to get over
things.
more negative things and be happy and ready to move on. And they just be part of the past. You learn, you move on, away you go. Understandably, you get there too, but
Much slower.
you deal with it on a little bit more of an emotional level for a little bit longer. So the ability to, and this kind of speaks to our strengths and weaknesses and being able to support one another's weaknesses with each other's corresponding strengths, that if there's a different way in which I need to see something or a different way in which you need to understand something, it's really nice that us as partners share these different, almost still super important skill sets that need to bring that person back up to vibrating at a high level sooner than they would if you weren't there or if I was not there by comparison, right? These are the things that allow you to get your butt kicked back on track and move on as opposed to wallowing off track for way longer than you need to because it's not doing anybody any good.
Yeah, we've heard some of our friends and mentors that are more successful than we are, which makes them really amazing mentors and people that we admire and look up to. And we will hear them talk about a very similar setup where, someone is having a challenging time and the other person just kicks them back into the game.
Yeah.
And it depends. This is, if it's something like a trauma or grief journey, well, obviously you have to give that person grace and space and support. But for the average things in life and challenges in business or business relationships, that you will have a balance between the two. And we certainly do, that to the point that you've already made, that you are quicker to move through those thoughts and feelings than I am. And you can shed some very bright light and perspective on my processing journey of what that looks like and help provide that context where I can understand. Like, I think even as a female, an emotional female, I will overanalyze and second guess things and second guess myself of, did I do this? Should I have done that? And you are so calm, cool, and collected when you provide that context for me that allows me to feel confident in how I feel and move forward accordingly.
Yeah, and that's not to say, that all of the way in which you're feeling is wrong and all the way in which I'm feeling is right. There's probably a harmony somewhere in between that makes the most sense. And, obviously the way that you might hang on to it a little bit longer, the reason why you might be more emotional is because you are truly vested into people's lives and invested into people's well-being. And that is a massive strength. So, there are parts of it that unfortunately becomes like a double-edged sword where because you are so much of one thing, you bring all this success because of it. But there's a thorn on the other side of that where unfortunately it might get you on the way out. And you can't have everything, right? So it's nice to have the partner in place that is able to recognize it when these things happen, when you do get caught on that thorn, and be able to ideally, hopefully, remove it so that you can continue to move forward with the superpower that exists usually in that exact same value.
Oh, absolutely. You said that so well. One thing I wanted to add that just even could be a source of inspiration for couples like us is that we've really grown to enjoy and appreciate sort of what you were saying, that we come up from air, 12 hours later of doing some of our day together, but then going in our different directions after that. This is sort of a two-part thought that, especially now in the season that we are in with summer and it's warm out and beautiful, we have found a lot of joy in, carving out almost an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the time and the plans for the evening, of just sitting outside. We've got a beautiful cabana at home in our backyard, and we get a lot of joy of just sitting out there, whether it be with a sparkling water, kombucha, glass of wine, whatever it may be, and just chatting and connecting and making a more of a conscious effort. This is more on my end than yours, but putting my phone away and just being present.
We have this on video and on tape, right? Put the damn phone away.
And we have a live audience member, so it's a witness that, yes, I can always be improving on that. I'm very connected to my phone, but trying to put that away and just being present for an hour, 30 minutes to an hour of connection at the end of the day is really, really powerful. And so if that can even be a takeaway for all of you listening or watching, that maybe that's something you can implement. Maybe you start with 15 minutes, like a little touch base at the end of the day. And it's something that I really look forward to feel like throughout the week, it starts with sparkling water or kombucha, and then maybe by like a Thursday night, it's a glass of wine, which is really lovely. And we just sort of check in and how was your day? Okay, we welcome this new member to the gym and they want to do training. Okay, let's match them with this trainer, chat through our business, but also celebrating each other's wins because as you shared, we do additionally do extra things outside of benchmark. And, the other day, Matt sold 3 Porsches in one day, and that hat trick is something to celebrate. And, I've just kicked off a really amazing and exciting partnership with a new brand that I'm really excited about as well. And so those are things that we have done on either end separately, but yet we can really enjoy celebrating together.
Part of that, and I appreciate that, but part of that too, what that falls into is, I think, another part of why it is that we're able to excel as much as we are able to within the business is that we have this commitment to growing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just growing personally, you and I, but professionally as much as possible. We've done things in the course of the last, call it, 1.5 to 2 years that we hadn't done together at any point leading up to that, whether it be as simple as committing to traveling for things that put you in rooms that have you meet incredible people that then structure what the best parts of your life look like moving forward from there, to even something as what we're doing here right now. A year ago, literally, would you thought that we'd ever be doing a podcast together?
No.
And we talked about it, right? But the idea of actually facilitating it to the point where you've got like literally dozens and dozens of episodes that are out there, and you have had amazing guests and tremendous co-hosts along the way.
Only one. I only have room for one co-host, and I'm staring straight at him.
These are all things that, whether it be that and certainly reading similar books and having these larger discussions as to what things look like. And I mean, look, partners typically have discussions about what does retirement look like and, where do you want to live and all of that. And that's great pie in the sky stuff 30, 40 years from now. Maybe not 30, 40, God willing. But these are all things that from a micro level, now that we've had these amazing, expansive opportunities, that you kind of see things more on a molecular level and understand a little bit better how it is that you're able to get from point A to point B. And that came with the commitment to constantly growing, getting in the right rooms and consistently getting in the right rooms, doing it once and checking it off your bucket list. Full transparency, it's not enough. Right? You're not the same person when you did it however many years ago versus where you're at now. So you're going to need that consistent support. You're going to continue to meet tremendous people, ironically, at the exact times that you actually meet them. And you need them at any given point. But when you meet them, more often than not, is exactly when you needed to meet them to up-level your game, right? And who knows what you serve as for them in comparison, right? Like you're the counterbalance to as great as they've been for you. Don't lose sight of the fact that you can serve to be somebody's reason for how and why they've up-leveled as quickly as they do too. So the whole idea, in my mind, at least, the whole idea of making yourself better with one another also allows us to quickly get to where we want to get to together. It's the shortcut, right?
I was just going to say that, and this, for all of you listening, this is point number 5 about our commitment to grow together and really enjoying that process of growing together. And this has been such a beautiful byproduct of our last year, and I think really a game changer in terms of our momentum that we've experienced this last year, that we are still in. We are still very much in our momentum and expansion season alongside one another. And even small things such as, listening to the same audiobook or podcasts that we'll each take an AirPod and take our dogs for a long walk. Sunday's actually our recovery day. We don't do anything intense from a workout standpoint, and we'll take our bigger 2 dogs for a 6 or 7 kilometer walk and really enjoy that time to chat, but also expand our minds together, listening to the same audiobook or podcast. Podcasts, if they're 20 to 45 minutes, that will also allow us time to debrief on the podcast. And we also appreciate the same types of books and podcasts and audiobooks that if it's a physical book that I read and then I'll tell you, okay, no, I think you actually really love this as well. And I feel like this will really resonate, but let me know what you think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've highlighted it so you get a bit of a Coles Notes as well.
Nice cheat notes, everybody.
Nice cheat
Perfect.
notes. But it's something that we've really grown into enjoying. And it wasn't always this way. I started my personal development journey earlier than Matt did. And Matt was always very supportive of me going to events that would require an investment and travel dollars and et cetera, et cetera. But man, it is so much better now that we get to be on that journey together, which also, make no mistake, it's double the price. So Matt and I go to a mastermind. We are paying 2 mastermind fees. We're buying 2 flights. Hotel, obviously, we share that. But it's 2 people going for dinner versus me going with some of my business besties for a girls' weekend where we can all share a room and we share dinner. But we really enjoy the process of doing that together. So much now that we have started our own mastermind. This has been so integral for our growth. And I think, the more we chatted about it, I'm sure we could break down even like some big emotions that sit with us for our experience being in rooms and masterminds of what we've extracted, what we've learned, how we've stretched ourselves, how we've turned around and immediately taken action that then not immediately, but had a beautiful trickle flow after that for growth and to where we are now, even just from a business standpoint versus where we were a year ago. And all of that, the root of it is to stretching ourselves, investing together to be in a room and enjoy everything that came from that room. And I think that's a deep love that you and I both share.
Yeah, I agree. I've said it's kind of like one of those little toy cars that you have to pull back for
Toy Porsche?
a few. Yeah, toy Porsche. You go back a few inches, and you have to step back with it. But that's where you're building all your momentum, and then you go.
Yeah. Okay, and point number 6. This is such a nice one. We're each other's best friend.
I would.
Is this a pause where people would roll their eyes?
Oh God, I know. Well, it's true, first of all, but I'll preface it by saying, look, this is specific to what has worked for us. This is a glimpse into how things are turned into success for us. This is what our formula is, and we are very lucky to know that we have each other's backs. And look, I understand that most marriages, each partner has each other's backs. That's kind of a general statement. But really, truly, we share a ton of commonality, not just who we are at our basic core level, how the foods we love, the movies we like to watch, the amount of dogs we want to own at the same time. These are all things that are important, yes. But when push comes to shove, there's nobody else we'd rather spend time with. And that is sometimes at the expense of putting up boundaries with other people and other things. And, sometimes people just don't quite understand that. Look, man, not our problem. Our number one is each other personally, first and foremost. That's the bedrock in which everything else sits on and extends from. We were best friends and married well before we ever had a business together. And that will always be the case moving forward, of course. But I think the success of our business is because of how strong we are as a unit, which starts as being each other's best friends first.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And, for everyone listening, just for some context, Matt and I are getting ready to celebrate our 7th wedding anniversary, but we've been together for more than a decade.
Yeah, going on, just over 11 years, actually.
And we bought our business over 5 years ago. So just to kind of give you some numbers for any of you that might be new to following the show or getting to know Matt and I through Instagram or the podcast, just to kind of give some context there.
Yeah, exactly. So we hope that this has shed some light as to, the inner workings of the Allie and Matt household and how that extends itself to the Benchmark household, because we do love that space as our second home, quite frankly, and the people that we have been so blessed to come across because of that. But it takes work. It takes effort, obviously, in like any other relationship. But like any other relationship, it's the work and the effort that make the successes and the realization of those successes so well worth it.
Absolutely. And the communication, but also the celebration as well.
Absolutely.
Because what's the fun in grinding and hustling and working so hard if you don't celebrate your wins and your achievements? And we are so goal-oriented. as individuals, but then again as a unit. And so we will set goals, whether they're revenue goals, whether they're member counts, or how many Porsches you want to sell in a month, how many tickets I want to sell in a week
How
for
we're
an
going to
event.
celebrate the wins. Like you've got to visualize that this is it's going to happen. And when you've got a good partner, business, friendship, personally, it's like cloning you twice, right? You got all the momentum times 2. And if you're lucky enough to have that, what the hell's stopping you? Nothing is going to stop you after that.
So watch out, everyone. Okay, give us a little recap. What are our 6 points, just so everyone has a nice little recap on everything that we shared?
Number 1, we share consistency of the boring things, as simple as even just things like our sleep schedule. Early to bed, early to rise. That's just one example. But consistency is key.
Number 2, we have different strengths and weaknesses.
Number 3, communication is key.
Number 4, we have very similar values between family, friends, quality time, boundaries, community, and celebrations.
Number 5, we have committed to grow with one another. And that's more than just as friends, but as business partners. We're consistently putting ourselves in places, in rooms with people that will expand us consistently.
And number 6, we are each other's best friend.
That's it.
I love you, best friend.
Love you, best friend.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you have loved this podcast, I would love for you to take a second and just give it a nice little rating. 5 stars, please. Rating, review, maybe share it with a friend. Maybe share it with your partner. Listen to this with your partner and see how you could maybe even apply some of these things and see how it resonates, how it feels. Whether it's your life partner, your business partner, maybe they happen to be both, just like Matt and I. We are so grateful for you listening and watching. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you again soon.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took 30 seconds and shared this on social media, send it to a friend, or leave a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I am so grateful to have you part of mine.